My name is Hilmi.
Hey.
About 30.
Well, good afternoon. I want to thank Sharif for his kind invitation. Thank you for allowing me to appear before you to address you today. I'm flattered and I'm honored and humbled to be among a long list of distinguished public officials and speakers who have gathered here at this place to address this audience, this august body. And I must say that in reading your website and your works, I am indeed pleased by what you have engaged yourselves in. That is trying to enlarge the public's awareness about the need for certain kinds of public policy that will make conditions better for more people in Chicago, in Illinois, and in the world. What a great mission, and I'm glad to be a part of it. You know, in thinking about this speech, I'm convinced that of all of the issues that concern us as human beings, that concern us as a state and as a nation, concern us as a culture of people, that the economic challenges that confront us, the quality of our health care, issues of social justice and poverty and jobs and on and on. In my judgment, there's one matter that transcends all of these concerns, and it is the disparity in educational success in America, about which I want to talk a little bit this afternoon. Because educational attainment in America is the gateway from the lower income stratas to the middle class. Quality educational opportunity for all may not be the only answer to all of the problems that we are confronted with. But if we start there, we'll end up in a better place. It should be among the first and foremost concerns that we have about healing some of the problems that confront us in the world. If more people had more education, in my judgment, we would have less societal problems. So I'm humbled and I'm grateful to be able to speak to you this afternoon on a topic that's dear to me. I gave you, Sharif, some papers to pass out. I appreciate if you would pass them out now. I want to talk to you about the Illinois public agenda for college and career success. Why is it important for us to talk about the public agenda? Let's call it the public agenda. It's important for us to talk about the public agenda. And you know, it's a beautiful publication, as you see. I can't take any credit for it because it was done 2 years before I became the executive director. But it is one of the most important documents that we have in the state of Illinois today. It's important because it gives us some opportunity to look at some problems in Illinois that can be solved through education. The major point that is made in the Illinois public agenda is that in Illinois there are 2 states rather than 1. 2 states of Illinois, one that's well off and the other that struggles, one that is highly educated and the other that is underserved and underrepresented. It talks about a state where in one part is economically vibrant. But down the street, the people are economically stagnant and going no place, ever. The public agenda, endorsed by the governor, the state legislature, and approved by the Board of Higher Education, talks about 2 states of Illinois separated by a widening prosperity gap right under our noses. That is a direct, not indirect, but a direct result of disparities in educational opportunity. And disparities, I hate to tell you this, by race and ethnicity, by income, and by geography. The National Center, you won't disturb me, come on in. The National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, called NCHEMS, helped the Illinois Board of Higher Education to do this public agenda. NCHEMS reported in this public agenda that Illinois has the widest achievement gap, one of the widest in the country, in 2010. That 86% of all of the other states, or 43 of the other states, have a prosperity gap that is smaller than the one that we have in Illinois. You know, I wish I could stand here before you this afternoon and give you good news where when you leave you would feel better. But I can't. I have to give you the news so that you can go out and work on the problems, then feel better. There is a disparity between those who have college degrees and associate degrees and high quality certificates and those who do not. And the gap in Illinois continues to grow wider and wider by the year. For example, in 2008, we were 39th among the 50 states in terms of the gap. In 2010, we slid to 44th, and we're still sliding. We're losing ground. We must do better, and we must act now. This achievement and prosperity gap causes a lot of suffering right in our midst. There are people in our eyesights, and you see them, and I see them, who are just not able to live a good and decent life, and it's traceable to their educational attainment. They exist on what I call the underside of the achievement gap. Did it turn? I went to an organization here in Chicago called Women Employed. And I wanted to get examples of 3 successful women who could not have been successful had it not been for some special circumstances. Would you help me to? The first one is Tina Jackson.
Being an adult over 21 years old and being a working student is very hard to be able to come back to school after so many years and try to sit in the classroom and actually do work that you have not seen in so long. But it's even harder when you are raising a child and you're working part-time and you're trying to go to school and the funding is not there, because right now every dime I make pretty much goes to rent and light bills, gas bills, all of the bills to make sure that we maintain. For me, financial aid is the only way for me to go back to school. It's the only way for me to stay here. It's the only way for me to achieve my goals. It's important for community college students to join together and advocate, because we actually need that power in numbers. We need those voices to be heard in order for us to get the funding for all of our students to be able to go back to school and be successful. I've seen so many people just not go to school because the money isn't there. It's so much better just knowing that I can achieve something and not be in the situation I was in before, and just knowing that I have a chance. I have a second chance to be able to set examples and be able to support us and get a better job. And I just see my future being much brighter now that I have the college education. It's important that you support women employed for me, because without women employed, I don't think that we would have the opportunities to speak out. I don't think that we would, as students, be able to come together and have that opportunity to get our voices heard. Make a gift to women employed. You'll be helping students like myself succeed. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about Elena Herrera. Helena Herrera, Hispanic lady who's worked in low-income jobs all of her life, barely scraping by. She supports her mother and father. She was able to go to college because of the Illinois MAP grant. And without the MAP grant, she would have been doomed to a low-income life for the rest of her life. And then there was Mary Bouillon. Mary is a 49-year-old woman who dropped out of college many years ago because she lost her financial aid. Are you about getting the story now? That without financial aid, without financial help and support, that many of those who are on the underside of the achievement gap will never make it. She lost her job. She ended up on the street. But she turned to Women Employed, and Women Employed helped her to get back into school. 3 cases. They're very typical of what we have right here in Chicago and in Illinois. That if had it not been for Women Employed, had it not been for the MAP grant, had it not been for a minister, or had it not been for a counselor, it's serendipitous, don't you see, that these women and many others, thousands of them, will never be successful, will never have a second chance. And so today, I've come to ask the Niagara Foundation to replicate what the Women Employed has been able to do, to become a partner with the Illinois Board of Higher Education to see if we can move this public agenda and close this achievement gap by having more people involved in higher ed. One Illinois is what we're trying to create in the public agenda. There are people who are underrepresented. Remember that word, underrepresented. Mostly Hispanics, mostly black and brown people who do not have the same advantage of going to college. That's the point of the public agenda. So why college? What is it about college that's so magical to the middle class? Well, a higher education improves one's earning power. For example, a high school dropout will earn about $1.2 million in their lifetime. A college graduate will earn $4.7 million in his or her lifetime. Almost 3.5 times more in their lifetime because of a college degree. And higher education improves, one's quality of life. People with a higher education are generally folks who are involved in local government, civic engagement, out there trying to help others, who have much indeed to do with cultural vitality of their communities. College graduates, which I'm pushing for today, generally speaking, the data show have better health, have healthier children, because they understand what is necessary for parenting healthy children and live in less poverty, and therefore have a stronger, more positive outlook on life. The point I'm making here is that Illinois simply will not be able to compete because the people that I'm describing are becoming Illinois' majority population. So if we leave this disparity achievement gap open and it's continuing to widen, it will affect the prosperity of our state and indeed our nation. We must close this gap. And the numbers that I want to show you support this fact that I'm making. The Georgetown Center for Education, in a report called Help Wanted, said that by 2018, about 2/3 of all of the people in Illinois will need some form of post-secondary education to get a decent job, if not 3/4. By 2018, it's 2011 now. We only have 7 years before that is a fact in our state. Illinois needs more college graduates and more of the underrepresented who graduate. So what action should we take? I just gave it to you. It's called the Illinois Public Agenda for College and Career Success. It's the state's blueprint. It's the state's roadmap to lead us to a more prosperous future, not just for the underrepresented, but for all of us. The public agenda, as I said, was created in 2008, 2 years before I came, was the product of a year-long study by maybe 100 people, maybe 30 at the core, to come up with this document. What you have is an abbreviated form. The document itself is maybe 30 pages, but you have a summary of it. And this task force was comprised of a broad cross-section of governmental leaders, people from the governor's office, from the legislature, from business, from labor, and from civic organizations. There were tens of meetings, maybe hundreds of meetings, regional forums, public hearings, one-to-one briefings that produced this document. And the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, MCHMS, gave of its research, its counsel, and its technical assistance as a national organization coming into Illinois to help us to produce the public agenda. And at the end of the day, when the public agenda was created, was produced, the Board of Higher Education approved it, the governor's office accepted it, and uses it as a guide, and so does the General Assembly. There are 4 goals in the public agenda. Quickly. The first goal is to make Illinois among the best performing states in the country. Right now, Illinois is not among the best performing states in the country. We want to be among the top 5. The second goal is to, and this is where the Niagara Foundation may be able to help a great deal, is to make certain that college is more affordable. College is not an affordable way of life for 2/3 of Illinoisans. So what can the foundation do? Push with us, help us, talk to legislators, talk to others who make a decision about scholarships that are queued to need. That's where our problem is. And the third goal is to ensure a larger number of post-secondary completers. We mean 4-year degrees, graduate and undergraduate. We mean 2-year degrees, and we mean certificates of all kinds that have a high value that lead to some type of better job. And the fourth goal is to integrate higher education research and the educational principles and innovation that start in colleges and universities into meeting the needs of the economy in Illinois. Governor Quinn says all of the time, without higher education in the lead, our recession will not go away. I can remember it was a cold February night. President Obama had just been elected. He was giving his first State of the Union address to the Congress. And with a frown on his brow, disappointingly, he said, you know, America is no longer a leader in the production of college graduates in the world. We used to be, but we're no longer, he said. Now we're number 9th in the world. And he said, I want to challenge the American people. That was his first State of the Union address. He said, by 2025, I want us to be a leader again in the production of college graduates in the world. I want us to have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. There is a place that the Niagara Foundation can also help. Governor Pat Quinn and President Obama, our favorite son, are on the same page. On September 24th, 2010, Governor Quinn said in a letter announcing his decision to join Complete College America as one of the inaugural states, Governor Quinn announced his 60-25 goal. He said that 60%, this is a state goal now, 60% of all Illinoisans of an adult age will have some post-secondary education completion by the year 2025. 60% by 2025. So the goal is called 60-25. That goal that Governor Quinn and President Obama articulated will require that Illinois increases the number of graduates by 4,400 students a year from now until 2025. That's a role that the Niagara Foundation and all of you can help us play. You know, the day when people leave high school, with a high school diploma, and start work in a local factory, maybe on the conveyor belt, starting out and going straight from high school all the way up to loading dock and then to the CEO's corner office does no longer exist. That day no longer exists in the United States without some college education. So that the key is that if we want to open the middle class to the growing majority of Illinoisans who are coming on the scene now, we have to make certain that that new majority has some form of college education. We're not talking about just four-year degrees, as we said. We're talking about also certificates. Somebody was talking to me about certificates at the beginning of this session in the reception. Yes, certificates are good if they lead to certain kinds of employment opportunities, especially in the areas of nursing, health fields, computer science, and the construction trades. Hillary Pennington, who is just resigned, but was a leading official at the Gates Foundation, spoke to us at the Education Commission of the States on July 7, 2011. She said about certificates, she said, you know, you don't have to have a college degree if you're not college material. She said 43% of all workers who have good certificates, strong, rigorous certificates, she said of 1 year or more, earn more than their colleagues with associate degrees in general, especially in certain fields. So how can Niagara Foundation help more? Well, I hope you will become a partner with us in the implementation of this public agenda. It is an important document. There are 4 things I want to ask you to help us do with this public agenda. Consider the establishment of a back to college program. if you don't want to establish one yourselves, why don't you join someone who already has one and become a supporter of a back to college program? Complete College America says that the low-hanging fruit, that are kids who are most likely to go back to go to school, to go to college, are those who have gone to college before and for whatever reasons are no longer there. So establish or work with an organization that has a back to college program, especially targeted toward the underrepresented. You all remember who I said that they were, right? Secondly, establish scholarships. But when most organizations establish scholarships, they establish scholarships for those students who have proved that they're the best in their classes. Now, what is wrong with that? Practically nothing. But there is a little part there that I want to emphasize. The new majority, Hispanic, Black, Latino, others, are generally folks who don't do well on these exams. And so their productivity level shows up latently, but it does show up. They've proved that if you invest in them, that they will graduate from college in general. With enough financial aid, Latinos graduate at about 80%. Team up with organizations. I'm suggesting women employed, but there could be others. The president of Ibachi is back there. Team up with his organization. And officers from Ilache, a Hispanic organization, is in the audience. Team up with them to see what can be done on this problem. President Obama talked to us again. He said in a speech that he was surprised that not a lot of people understood the value of education. He said, I want you to commit more to education. He said, I ask, quote, every American to commit to at least 1 year or more of higher education or career training. Quotes, he said, it could be a community college or a 4-year school. He said, it could be a vocational training. It could be an apprenticeship. But whatever the training may be, he said, every American will need to get more than a high school diploma going forward. And he said, dropping out of high school is no longer an option. It's not just quitting on yourself, President Obama said. It's quitting on your country. And your country needs and values the talents of every American. You know, in order to accomplish this vision that I've laid out to you today, creating one Illinois, closing that achievement gap, we'll need strong leaders. Leaders with great vision, leaders who are courageous, leaders who have wonderful dreams, who will dream about things and make them happen, put them into existence. Put them into existence in places where you work, where you worship. Put those things into existence on your streets, in your communities, in your homes, to identify and live with this problem until it is resolved. We have to work at this problem. This problem is not going to go away. That is, that the majority of Americans are not going to have college degrees going forward. It's not going to go away. It's just going to get larger unless we work at it, and larger and larger. We have to build a new culture that takes in the new people. You know, I was just thinking about this, and all of the big things I've ever done in life, and I'm appreciative for the grace of God and all kinds of help from people. I was only limited by my dreams to do them. I was only limited by a new opportunity to take advantage of them. And so my friends and colleagues, the answer is that we are only limited by our dreams. And this is a big dream. We want more Illinoisans, more of the majority of our people in college. This dream, I hope, from this day forward, will be embedded in your hearts in a kind of way that before you came in this room and heard about the public agenda was not there. And we're not there yet in accomplishing the public agenda. But with your help, I'm sure we'll accomplish it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reid. Do you have any questions or comments?
To read
Yes, sir.
the action March, I was a former education administrator. I always worry about retention. In the public schools in Illinois, some public schools, the retention very bad. For example, in the State University, according to Chicago State University, according to one report, retention rate is below 20%.
Yes.
Now, do you have any idea how to keep those people already in college continue their work, finish college?
That
to
too.
prevent to drop out. Of course, there are many people drop out, become a millionaire like
Gates, Bill Gates.
as they did at there, right?
I wish I'd dropped out and become a millionaire, but I stayed in college. It's a difficult problem because let's take Chicago State, for example, one of our 9 universities over 12 campuses. Chicago State's population is basically inner city. Chicago State is trying to treat the people who I'm addressing, a lot of the people I'm addressing in this address today. And so those people often have ability, but they don't have preparation. They have very little background from their high schools. And I understand Chicago Public Schools and others are trying to do, and will do better. But in the meantime, you have these kids at a Chicago State who need time to get themselves together and then move along. What we found in Maryland, where I came from, is that, to Illinois, is that if we have the appropriate mathematics and English, and I'm getting ready to say a bad word, but it's not a curse word, but it's a bad word, remedial courses. If we had good, solid, remedial course teachers, that the kid in English and mathematics will finish ahead of the student who did not have to take remedial English and mathematics. We did a study in Maryland. Now, I don't think that Maryland is that much different from Illinois. I just think that what we have to do is to re-examine the way that we are teaching these critical gateway subjects like English and mathematics and reading to people who have very little background, to make certain that we get them on board and then push them hard toward the finish. And I think we can do it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Highly informative and passionate presentation.
Thanks, sir.
I can remember all of our presidents from Nixon to today who have pledged, I want to be the education president. I vividly remember for a number of years, from beyond Thompson, we have to do this for Illinois to improve education. We have to get the lottery to improve education. And yet, the gap increases as you eloquently presented. Being in the position that you are, what do you think is the #1 problem or 2, not symptoms, core problems that our nation and our state face in the education system that we have today?
Well, there are lots of problems. Among them, I don't want to identify 1, 2, or 3, but among them are, we have a growing population in Illinois and the nation that is non-traditional. Let me allude once again to the state of Maryland. In Maryland, the Latino and African American population is the majority in Maryland today, soon to be the majority in Illinois. One of the problems is that they do not learn the same way at the same rates that traditional students learn. So we've got to train up teachers who understand, who are from many of those areas. Not all teachers have to be, but who understand the culture of those people and who can relate the culture to their lives so that they can pick up and learn that this is not so much different from what I do every day. That's one thing. Second thing is, so I think reforming the practice of teaching. Secondly, these people are poor. They're mostly first generation students. We are going to have to get some, I don't know how to say it, other than say we have to get some money together for scholarships for these people. That's, if we don't, I told you about the 3 cases. Each one of them would not have been successful had it not been for what? Financial aid. And I didn't ask them to tell that story. That's their story. And that story is replicated hundreds and thousands of times. People can't see the end of the path because they're crowded by bills and babies and this and that and the other. So they drop out. That's what they think they should do. Thirdly, maybe this one will be my last one because I could go on and on. But thirdly, those of us who advocate for this, like women employed, maybe like the Niagara Foundation, cannot tire. This is a problem of immense proportion. We're talking about a changing of the guard. We're talking about a guard, though, that is not prepared for the change. So if we want to continue to have America to be what America has always been, one of the best in the world, we'll have to understand that this new guard is not going to go away. It's going to get larger. And we're going to have to find ways to work with them, their leaders, to get all of these things done. Now that is not being done today because education leaders tire. They get tired. They get frustrated because, as you know, probably better than most people, education is one of the worst paying professions in the country. In countries like that are doing well, Sweden and Switzerland, a teacher is thought of as being almost in the upper class and paid that way. But here in America, you can find teachers in the classroom who make less than factory workers, who don't have any college education. So we've got to beat the drum and blow the trumpet and tell the stories and make certain that people do not forget that this is a problem of immense proportion that will not go away.
So for the last question,
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Reid. You mentioned, I think one big problem is cost.
Yes.
And, education has always gone up
Yes.
higher than inflation.
Yes.
And to me, I think that's a big problem because then you, as you say, it will not be affordable
Right.
for people. So have you done studies or can you give some insight as to why this is the case and
Yeah.
what we can do to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't really,
Well, I haven't done any studies, but let me conjecture. Would you allow me a little conjecture? If you were to compare the rate of increase in what it costs to supply good education in a college or university with the rate of increase in the corporate world for salaries of the corporate leaders, you would see that education is still a heck of a bargain in the United States. What we've done over the years, I think, is to compare education with the lowest level of work in our society. Therefore, if we pay a college professor $150,000, who has an expertise, who can do well for us and our kids, the newspapers and others will come and say, oh, he's being paid too much. But if you go down the street a half block to a corporation, where the CEO, the assistant CEO, is making $750,000 a year, what is of most value? That one person or a teacher who might teach 1,000? So we're going to have to change our perception of what people in our society are most important and should be regarded as such and paid well. And teachers are among them. There are not a lot of organizations where people can express in documented terms some of the problems that are occurring in society, and Niagara Foundation is one of them. And for that, you ought to be credited. And as I said in my remarks, I do appreciate the work that you do. In addition to that, the audience that was here today is truly an audience of adult achievers who now have come to a realization that maybe some things are going not in the way that they intended. And therefore come to the Niagara Foundation to be sensitized about where the problems areas may be in society. Today I talked about higher education because in our strategic plan, which is called the Public Agenda for College and Career Success, which I talked about a lot in my speech, the Public Agenda documented the two Illinois, one that is doing well and one that is not doing so well. And so the one that is not doing so well happens to also be that the gap between those two is widening, and that one that is not doing so well is going to be, in short order, the majority. So we have a growing problem that we got to resolve, and we have to resolve it through